Today we're going to talk about the WNBA refs, how they're trained and how they're supposedly held accountable. So welcome to our channel. I'm Mark.
And I'm Rob.
So hey, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. Hit the notification bell when you do so you get notified of our next video. So Rob came across this article, and Rob was a ref before, as in addition to a player and a coach. And he wants to talk about that. It's called How WNBA Referees Are Scouted, Trained, and Held Accountable. Explained. So, Rob, tell us your analysis of this article.
We're both trying not to laugh at the last part, held accountable. So
I am laughing. I'm not even trying not to laugh. I am laughing. Because it was obvious last year they were not held accountable.
They sure were.
Let you talk about that first.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, like Mark said, I mean, I have experience with being a player, being a coach, and also a referee. And plus, my dad was a referee for 25 years. So this article I found in the SB Nation was kind of interesting. And finally, how they exposed how they actually go through the process of being a referee, which makes sense, So, I mean, it starts out so.
Hey, Rob, we did one video on this, just as a reminder, how there was a quote from some ref who was part of an organization that said how they actually recruit referees for all the leagues, including the NBA, college. And they start with supposedly a million refs, and they get it down to 300. I remember that part. And they go through several training sets, right?
Well, this goes into even more detail, which I liked about it. So it's hard for me to watch games and I wish my dad was alive, because I would sit there and just ask him, what do you think about this call? So the whole process of choosing or trying to be referees is kind of up to you. Some come into it as actually they need money, because you can make pretty good money being a referee if you do it right. Also, some just do it because the love of the game. They like that. So that's what my dad did. Of course, he did it for money too, but it was love of the game, being around it. You actually, as you're refereeing, you actually watch the players, and it's like, wow, that player's pretty good. He's going to be really good. So They start the whole process, and they go through. There's camps, and it's also what they do is they screen players. So they look at players going through high school, and then they apply. One of the referees in the article, that's how he started. He was a high school teacher, and he was not getting that much money. So, but he liked refereeing. He was doing just 7th and 8th grade refereeing. So he's like, oh, let's check this out. So he actually asked his dad, because if he could borrow money to go into the training to be a referee.
Oh, you have to pay. You have to pay for that, right?
Oh yeah, it's not free. Yeah, it's not. I mean, the way they referee seems like a free ride, but you have to pay in order to go to school. So they do that. So he borrowed some money from his dad and got into the refereeing. And the process also with the refereeing, that what they do is, once they get in there, they have to go through the G League. All the referees don't just jump right into WNBA refereeing.
Well, before you go on, how long is this training that they go through? And is there several steps to the training? Like, you go to the initial school that you pay for, and then do they make you not pay for the training when it's more advanced training? You know what I mean? Can you break down the training for us?
Well, I mean, with the training, I mean, you go through and one of the most important things when you're doing a referee is how to make a call. So you see a foul. Now, the first thing you have to make sure is you put your hand up in the air like that, because you're signaling that I see a foul. But then you point, and there's different ways of doing whatever number you want to choose, 2, 3, or 1. Do one. Some people you see some referees use both hands to do the numbers. Some just use 2, 1, and then you got to do the correct, just like in any referee, you got to do the correct, foul. You got to do the motion so the person's, we understand what you're doing. They'll just go, that's a foul. Okay, what kind of foul was it?
So is this stuff that you're covering now, the stuff that you do in the beginner course, the one that you pay for?
Oh yeah, it's a beginner course, just the basic stuff. You would think that, but that's one of the most important things, of course. And then there's the book they actually have a rule. You know, you of course you have a rule book, and you have to go through that whole book and read through that book about all the rules. You got to know basically what the rules, and then they actually take a test. They'll give you a test. It's like you're in school.
Well, let me stop you right there, Rob. So I understand there's a lot of basic rules that are the same from league to league, but they're not all identical. So do they? If there's rules that are specific to, say, the NBA that doesn't exist, they're not in that first quiz, right? That quiz that they do kind of like general basketball rules and not ones that are specific.
Mark, you brought up you're getting ahead of me, but that's one of the things that I'll talk about that later. But that is so. What they say is that the referees don't referee the games the same as they would an NBA game, and I'm just like, why? To me, if you're a referee, that's your objective is to be consistent. So no matter if you started in 7th grade, 8th grade, if you go all the way up to NBA or WNBA, why are you changing the way you ref? That's that kind of, when I saw that, I was like, wait.
Well,
would that bother you, Mark?
If you're refereeing should be the same. The basic strategy, the basics that you learn in the first camp, it seems to me that should never change, because that's why they're called basics. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
For everything. That's to me. But I don't know what they learn in the first camp or what they learn later on, and what they learn specifically for each league that they are refs in. So I don't know. I've never gone through that, so I don't know. So, anyways, you do this basic training, right? At this first one that you pay for.
Mm.
And then after that, that's when you can start to apply for a specific job like high school or college or referee.
Well, like I said, if you reach that level where you're accepted and you get through all the training and pass the tests, then you get to a referee. And most of them everybody starts off in the G League.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at, do they give you some free training after that?
No, that's up to you. I mean, as far as once you finish your course, that's it. You're done. Now you are officially
okay.
You're in this loop of trying to be a referee. So then they put them in the G League. So you have to go. Everybody goes to the G League.
Well, what about high school and college?
Well, that's the pool they pull from. They pull from the NCAA and high school referees.
Okay, so these are people who are applying for upper echelon jobs, not for high school ones. The high school ones is a different.
No, yeah, this is WNBA referees. Yeah, they're not applying. This is for WNBA to be a WNBA referee.
Can you go straight from this first program straight to the G League, or do you have to do high school first?
No, you're going right to the G League. So that's why, that's why it's so like, that's why you have to pay, and then that's why you go to this. So you're going right from. You're not going to go off. Okay, now you go ref your. I mean, you do that in your off time, but the focus is trying to get you ready for the WNBA. So they put you in the G League.
What about qualifying? Let me just stop for a second. What about to ref in high school? What do you have to do to get qualified to ref in high school?
Essentially the same thing.
In 8th grade. Let's just say high school.
Well, essentially the same thing. You go through the same thing. There is a test and there's a book and you got to read that. So and then in college, and with college, you get the evaluation. That's the fun part of being a referee. You get evaluated to move your way up for the movement.
So what do they give you, a game to go do, and then they film you, and then they go over it afterwards? Or
actually, that's exactly right. They look at your games. Nowadays, they film. Usually, my dad, or even during when he was refereeing, after he was retired from refereeing, he would go to check out a referee and have essentially like a little clipboard, whatever, and check off. Did he do the hand movements right? Was he positioned correctly underneath the basket? Was he loud enough? Did they explain the call properly? So they get evaluated. It was that way. But now they can just go to the tape, and then they'll show the referee, point out what they did wrong and what they did right.
Okay. So I'm going to assume that probably the people that did this course and got put in the G League probably did some high school games before that. But be that as it may, they're in the G League now, and that's considered lower than the WNBA, correct?
That's correct.
Is it considered lower than Division III, Division II, Division I?
No, G League is G League because the next step is with the G League. It's like a minor league. It's like a minor league umpire. You're a minor league referee. So your next step, you could be called up to be a referee for the NBA or WNBA.
So what's the route towards college basketball refereeing then? How do you get?
College is like from high school. So you start, whatever, junior high, high school, and then you end up. Because my dad did the same thing. He refereed high school and college.
Right.
Actually,
Okay.
he got to do both.
So if you do well in the G League, is that obviously the WNBA is lower than the NBA? So then they place you in the WNBA, or they allow you to
Right.
do games
Right.
because they're not
right.
full time salary from what I read. It's per game. So
Right. You're eligible to move up to referee in the WNBA, and there you're evaluated by games. So they don't just put you in there. They have three. Actually, they have three where you have the head referee, you have the second referee, and then they have the umpire. But they have the lead. So your objective is to be the lead crew. So they don't just throw you together. They just don't say, okay, see you, Mark and Rob, you guys are friends. You guys going to referee together?
no, I understand. Yeah,
They go like, okay, this person works well with this, so you got to work well with others. So that's how they evaluate you.
well,
I mean, you actually before you, like I said, you in the school, you actually referee other people's games, and they watch you, and they see how you mesh with the other referees.
What do
And
they
then
do?
you're
Like a new
crew.
ref. If you're a
Yeah.
new ref, do they put you with the most experienced head ref or something like that?
Most likely, yeah. Oh yeah, most likely. But I mean,
Right.
you have the field. You have your head crew ref. He's the guy who's been around for a while or knows. I guess he has good evaluation. So then you have but the other is an umpire. They're officially, it says that they're not really a referee, which kind of like, wait a minute. I mean, what are they then?
That explains why Caitlin Clark doesn't get any calls. The umpire happens to see all these times she gets clacked in the head and there's no foul calls.
Yeah, right in front of me, I guess, because I'm going like, well, I thought if you're a referee, you're a referee. But they just give them names.
All three are just having their own position and their own viewpoint, and they're all supposed to be making calls based on whether they could see that particular area of the basket. So do they get a grade after every game? Is my first question.
Yeah, well, the WNBA they do because they actually get paid by every game. They don't.
Right, I understand this.
Unlike the NBA referees, they're like, okay, we're NBA referee. You go around and you get paid for every game you go to. You're already paid.
It's my understanding that the NBA refs are salary for the whole season, and the WNBA refs are per game. In college basketball, it was unclear to me when I looked it up. It looked like some were salary and some were per game.
Right.
When I looked up college basketball refs. So you get a grade after every game. Do you have to get a certain minimum grade before you can ref your next game?
Now, with the article, it kind of they kind of stuck up for themselves because they were saying about how they were evaluated, and they wouldn't go into what happens if they, they said that like for suspension or not being able to ref another game, they would have they kind of threw out some criteria like, well, if you missed the 2-minute call or if you missed something, it was nothing related to where the player was flagrant fouled or anything like that.
This makes no sense to me. If it was me, I mean, maybe I'd give him a second game, but I gave him a second game because the first game you're nervous, everything's new, it's happening fast. But it seemed to me if you do 2 or 3 games, and you're, let's say 3 games, let's be fair, get a while to get used to doing it. If your grade's so low, it seems to me at that point they should just demote you back to the G League again and say get better, and then you can try again in a year. I mean, I don't understand. It looks to me like what they do is they just leave you in the WNBA, and that's why the refs are so bad.
Right, you would think that, Mark, but let's get into that. So you can play. So I was sitting there, okay, but then I read further. I'm going, so then I talked with the referees. They said, okay, so they also, you have you as a referee, you follow you thing to be consistent, but the determination of how you are the games in the WNBA are determined not by you, but by the commissioner and other higher ups that are involved in the game. I was like, what? So now I see why.
The commissioner should have some say in it. The commissioner's trying to make money for the league, and if it's not reffed properly, and if it's not reffed conducive to good basketball, then the commissioner should have some say in it. Maybe not the final say, but definitely some influence on it. It seems to me that has to be. And my question is has Kathy Engelbert ever said anything to these refs about how she wants the league ref? Because obviously everybody says this prison ball is too physical. Has she ever said anything to them And does she have control over that? Can she say, listen, we got to have it less physical?
That's right, question. Mark. That's right, Mark. So her and the upper echelon there, they determine. So like you said, she's the commissioner and should be looking at the referees, but she has like this, okay, you guys, yeah, you're referees, but this is the way I want you to ref. Our game is a physical game. So instead of like calling this foul here, you have to kind of let that go. So she's allowing them to not call like we want to. She's allowing a physical game because that's the way she determines it. So I was like, oh, so no wonder the referees are doing this. They have the right, but they still have to follow what the commissioner says. I'm like, wow.
Okay. I'm flabbergasted because after 5 years, she's been in control of the league as commissioner, and the refs are still being just as physical. I'm assuming that's as they were 5 years ago, as I wasn't watching, but it's so physical now. I can't imagine it's any more physical. And I'm curious to see if after all the backlash to the physicality of the league and the lack of calls by the refs in regards to the physicality, whether they're going to call it tighter next year so that they can't get away with so much physicality. I'm going to see if the commissioner had, because before there was no eyes on the league. She probably didn't hear much criticism because nobody was watching. Nobody gave a crap. But here she heard so much criticism this year about prison ball and physicality of the league. It has to have sunk in at this point that the new fans, which they can't afford to lose because they didn't have enough fans before,
right,
doesn't want that. I'm wondering whether or not she's going to do anything to change how the refs call the games this year. I'm curious. That's one of the most curious things about the WNBA this year.
Yeah, well, that's what they were saying. They're saying since there's more eyes on the league now, it's more popular, that we'll see what happens. But my thing is like also, so now we're saying how the referees are not. So we can blame the referees and how they are, but now we can see why it's not just them that they're horrible referees. They have to follow what the commissioner says. The referee, the brand of basketball that they want to put out there. So I'm like, okay, I can see I can kind of slide for the referees now. You can see why they are bad. Not that
okay,
good.
So I have two questions. One is, at the end of the year, if your grades are bad, your scores are bad, do they lay you off or demote you back to the G League? Like, is there a certain minimum score or grades that you have to have in order to be a ref the next season?
Well, that's the whole thing. And then they again.
This is a long article too, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, again, they kind of protect the ref. They don't say what happens. Like, do they get fined? Do they get suspended? All the questions you just asked, they didn't go into that. They kind of like pushed this and like, well, we can't really say.
They're all being awful vague about this, Rob. Because if I was running the league, and I think the NBA does this, if you're at the very, very bottom of the NBA, you don't make it back next year. I don't know how many they let go per year, but I've heard that there is a minimum requirement that you have to have, and then they hire. That's how they get new refs, not just from refs. WNBA, I don't think is doing that because that's why the refs are so bad. I don't think they get rid of them the next year. No matter how bad their scores are, you can do another game next year, whatever.
Well, they're game to game. Since they're not salaried, Mark, they're game to game. So if they suck, then they say, okay, you're not going to be doing this so many games. So they have to be up there. So who knows?
Well, I wouldn't get many games if they sucked. Is that my point?
Right.
My point is that if they don't, they got all sorts of refs that want to ref these games. So there should be a minimum score that they should have to get in order to get future games. Otherwise, go back to the G League or go back a Division III college basketball or high school basketball or something like that, or Division II college basketball. Yeah, so I can tell the Division I refs, both men and women's, are better than the WNBA refs. I can tell that.
Well, it's funny because one of the referees, he was saying how there's in college they have you have your college referees, but then there's also a league for intramural. I didn't know this. There's a national intramural basketball league, and he played in it. And he said the referees were better there than they were in college, which doesn't surprise me.
What do they say about fines and stuff like that? Do they get fines for really having bad calls or bad games or anything?
They don't say, Mark. Like I said, they really don't say.
So what happens? Let's take the call where Kennedy Carter hip checks Caitlin Clark or shoulder checks her to the ground. The ref doesn't even go and look at the monitor to rewatch what happened. And he just gives her an off-the-ball foul, which is obviously wrong. To me, it was a flagrant 2 because it wasn't a basketball play, and she really hit her bad. I think she called her the B word too at the same time. The ref was only 3 feet away, and he must have heard that. And he did that, and he off the call foul. I think she got 1 free throw. That was an obvious, and they upgraded it to a flagrant 1, which was wrong. But obviously they're saying it was wrong. So they say something to the ref. They say, why did you get, they bring him into the office and say, hey, what happened here? Why didn't you give it a flagrant?
Like I said, they taped the games, and that would be one of the ones where they were saying where that could involve in suspension of not going to the monitor. Not that he missed the call, that he didn't go to the monitor and see about the call, which is kind of strange.
Call on purpose, Rob, because it was Caitlin Clark.
Right.
And that's the whole point. That's why, despite what ESPN thinks, that if it was somebody else, if that was Asia Wilson, that would have not been off the ball foul. He would have gone to the monitor, and it would have been a flagrant 1 or a flagrant 2. I'm 100% sure of that. Right. It's such an obvious call.
Right.
So that ref, I wouldn't want that ref back.
Yeah.
If I was that ref, just for that call alone, that call was so bad. And here we are. Caitlin Clark's already gotten a lot of physicality before that. She had all sorts of calls before that weren't called when she's driving to the basket and get hit in the head. Mm-hmm. And then you got to protect the stars of your league, and you don't have to give their favorable whistle, but you got to protect them. And they didn't do that with that call.
Mark, like I said, my main thing was, as a referee, you have to be consistent. I mean, but they're not allowing that to happen. When you have the head of the WNBA commissioner say, yeah, I can be consistent, but we're a physical league, so don't call that foul. That now you normally probably would call that foul because you know it is, but don't call it in our league. It's like, wait a minute. It's a foul. A foul's a foul.
You may had me take a whole course that said basic basketball things, and now you're saying don't follow basic basketball rules. Yeah,
it's like a foul's a foul. What I called that foul in 7th grade. I called that foul in 3rd grade. Right. Why is it now the NBA? And then also they don't, unlike the NBA, the last 2 minutes, they don't really evaluate like they do. Like, you know how the NBA, after the game, they go, well, they messed up on this call. They missed this call. They missed this call. They don't do that in WNBA. They said because they don't have the technology to do that.
Technology. Rob, like, here's the thing. People that are licensed, like lawyers like myself, doctors, real estate agents, they have continuing education courses they have to take every year, like 12 credits. It seems to me that they should have continuing education for the refs and continuing training. That's one. And like, even if it's once a month or whatever it is, just every year you go in there. Or they also should have something where they go, okay, these are the points of emphasis that we want this year. And this is how we're going to change how it's called this year, which is what we talked about earlier with the commissioner who's brain dead and doesn't do any of that. But I'm just curious, Rob, do they get more training?
I was just going to say, actually they do. I mean, because, the rules change during the years, and there's certain things, like, especially like with when the 3-point shot came in, they all had to go back and go, okay, they had to figure out which signal you use for a 3-pointer, because a lot of people don't know that. I mean, just holding a 3 up, you have to, as soon as the shot goes up, you hold your hand up, and then, then you do 3. But like, just that little simple gesture, then you got to make sure it is a 3. You have to look down and see where they're shooting from. So yeah, they do go back. They do go back to school, and they do go on briefing, like you said, go over what the rules are and things are like that. So
I just wonder what they do to them. Like, let's say there's a foul call. Like, there was Marina Mabry just hits Caitlin Clark in the head as she's driving to the basket. It was obvious foul. Just swallowed the whistle, and Caitlin Clark went to shoot a 3, and the person stepped in her space and knocked her down. No foul call. Same ref that did, I think, one of the other foul calls that were missed. Not necessarily the ones we talked about, another one. The same ref that missed that. Like, and they're like not calls that are judgment calls, but really bad. I just wonder what they say to them and what they do and how that affects their grade, and why they continue to be able to be refs when you can't miss calls like that, Rob. You shouldn't miss calls like that and be a ref in a professional league. If you're that bad, you should be doing high school, and that's not even fair to the high school kids.
Exactly.
But I'm saying those calls are so easy; they're so obvious. Yeah. How do they?
It doesn't seem like they penalize them, Mark. I mean, obviously they're not penalizing him because that referee's he's still refereeing.
I know.
So,
I saw.
so,
I
so,
didn't.
so,
I didn't
so
hear
what?
any refs were no longer allowed to ref in the WNBA throughout the year. I didn't hear that they suspended any refs, or they said they fired
Yep.
any refs, or they said you're not getting any more assignments. I didn't read any of that. It could have happened, but first of all, if you were doing that, you should publicize it so you can say, "Hey, we're doing this to improve the refs." So either they're too stupid to publicize it. They don't even have to say which refs. They just have to say whatever, or they're not. Because I remember in the NBA when this one ref, and he was, I think it was a playoff game with Clyde Drexler, and he didn't
I
like
do
Clyde
remember that.
Drexler. And Clyde Drexler was pretty likable, so I don't know. I don't understand why he didn't like Clyde Drexler, but because they all challenge calls, and Clyde Drexler challenged a call, and then he gave him a technical. Whether he deserved it or not, I don't know. And then he barely did anything after that, and he gave him a second technical, and it was a playoff game, and he kicked him out of the game essentially because second technical kicked him out of the game. That ref never did another playoff game for the rest of his career. I think he even actually didn't even come back the next year. Okay, he was held accountable for like basically putting himself in a position where he made it about himself as opposed to
Right. That's
what it should be.
and a lot of refs, and Mark, being a coach and a player, especially, I've gone over an incident where I got thrown out of the game for the referee just didn't like me. I don't know what the deal was.
Oh, come on, Rob. Everybody likes
But
you.
he not like me, but he did. I didn't
You
swear
threw
at
your
him. I didn't
clipboard,
say
Rob?
anything.
You threw your clipboard?
No, I didn't even use my clipboard. That's the whole thing. The one call where the ball was out of bounds. I just said, "That's our ball," and he teed me up. I'm like, okay, and I stopped, and then again, the ball was down the other end, and I go, "Oh, out of bounds," and then he teed me up again. I'm like, what? And then I asked him. Then I asked him, "Why did you tee me up, or why'd you give me a technical foul?" And his answer was, "You're trying to influence my call." Duh. Is that my job?
I'm sorry. All coaches do that.
Yeah. So
well, this article just reinforced the fact that I think that there's very little supervision and held accountable. You know, it was in the headlines, Rob, and there's very little refs being held
That's why we
accountable,
laughed.
which is why they're so bad because they haven't been doing this in the WNBA. Now we saw an ad for 2 positions that relate to this. We don't even know if they're new positions or whether they fired those people and hired new ones. All we know is that that's what we saw in the offseason, and I'm wondering if that's going to help. But all these, like how to do this, is all in place. The NBA has a whole system to do this, which is why they have the best refs. And they pay them the most money, and so. But they make a lot. They miss calls too, obviously. But it seems to me this isn't difficult. We've got a system in place. You just follow the NBA.
Just follow.
And it doesn't seem like they're doing all that.
Not even that, Mark. Like I said, just follow the rules. Be consistent. Follow the rules. It's pretty simple.
When you have an agenda, for this league, and it doesn't involve having Kate and Clark getting the benefit of the calls.
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't keep bringing that up, but
No,
I've never seen a player get a worse whistle than Kate and Clark in the history of watching basketball. I'm 65 years old.
It's true, but it's true, but even Charles Barkley notices it. That's pretty.
And it's not the rookie thing. There's something else going on here. And these refs, they like you said, Rob, just be consistent. They're not consistent with their players. Asia Wilson goes and plays the Indiana Fever, and Leah Boston had 5 fouls, just breathing. And meanwhile, Asia Wilson was a fairly physical player, got 0 fouls at that point, right? For the entire game, she got 0 fouls. Asia Wilson,
right.
You're not telling me there's favoritism there to the degree that more than a rookie veteran favoritism. So like that those refs shouldn't be allowed to ref again in the WNBA. You just can't have this. It's like in the league, and then expect the refs to be credible and expect the league to be credible.
Well, you expect, yeah, exactly. You want a quality league. You want people to watch you, and you say, "Watch us," but it starts from above, and it starts right also when people can see the people who are refereeing the games, not just the players, but also how the game's being refereed, because they're influenced by how the ref is refereeing the game. So,
if it's per game, I'm assuming there's plenty of refs because you can always pick the ones that are getting the highest grades from the G League and promote them. If it was me, I would have strict grades and I would just say, okay, we're not going to invite. This is per game. You're not getting any more games. And I take like the top rated guys from the G League, or I'd go over to NCAA men's basketball Division I. I'd start there and then go Division I women's after that. And I'd say, hey, listen, you guys only have to do 35 games a year there. Do you want to do, some games during the off season here? And go to the best ones first and offer them to also ref in the WNBA. Now, if you do that, you suddenly have better refs. It's not that hard. I don't think there's no way they could have done that. And
it
still
seems like
refs that bad, Rob, because they look like amateur. It looks like they're doing 7th and 8th grade refs.
Right. Seems like the screening system is not very good, as you say. If you're striving for the best referees, you're getting like maybe 50%. Your screening process. I don't know who's doing your screening process. You may be better. Maybe have somebody else take over for the referee screening, but they're not that good.
Where they go to the monitor and still get it wrong, even though it's obvious what the right call is. I've seen that. It's like, really? How did you get that wrong? You had 3 people. And I think they have a person at headquarters too. So even let's say the guy that made the call, he's not even part of the discussion. The other 2 refs go over there and they then talk to a third guy, and the 3 of them still get it wrong. And then they got all sorts of camera angles nowadays. Like I'm flabbergasted at how they could do that.
And Mark, you probably disagree with me on this. I thought just having 2 referees were better than 3, because they're not. If you have 3, you would think
convince me on that one.
Better.
There's too many angles. There's too many angles that need to be covered.
But the 2 referees, they seem to did better than these. You have more. You have 3 of them out there.
WNBA. You had 2 refs in the WNBA, and it would be even worse. It would be. So, I don't know. I'm flabbergasted how bad the refs are and how biased they are against Caitlin Clark. And I hope this changes this year, because the league is seen as a joke in this area. It's seen as a joke in other areas too, but in this all in the commissioner and the head referee, whoever that is, or the head referee committee or organization. I'm sure there's more than one person doing the grading. And if those people aren't doing the right job, and there's not repercussions for not being good refs, what's the point? And I don't get the impression that's what's been happening. And you can get better refs, and I just put a format down there that you can follow, and you can get better refs. And I'm hoping they follow it in the future. Yeah, they suck. The refs suck. And it's a joke. And that it's funny that you read this really long article, and they're really vague about what the repercussions are for being a bad ref.
Yes.
And that tells me maybe there's not enough repercussions.
Yeah, true. That is true. That's what I came by with this article. I'm like, so what's happened? Nothing happens? What's the deal?
I have no idea. I have no idea what happens. Apparently not, because that's why we're stuck with bad refs. We'll see what happens this year. And they do have a new coach, Stephanie White, and she probably has more credibility with the refs. And maybe, she sticks up for the team and the players, they'll get better calls this year for the Fever. So I really think they got screwed over last year just because they didn't want Indiana Fever to win, because that would be good for Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark was already getting too much publicity. That's really what the main reason's going on here. She's a straight white woman in a black lesbian league and stuff like that. And that's really it's obvious what was going on from the first regular season game, Rob. Like a minute or 2 into it, when I think it was a fairly famous. I can't remember who was driving to the basket. I think it was Asia Wilson or something. Caitlin Clark had a switch, and she stepped away, and then they just reached in a little bit, didn't even touch her as far as we could tell. Oops, call. And a minute later, she was going for a loose ball. It was iffy. Second call right away. Next, she's in foul trouble in her first game. And you can tell from the very beginning, they weren't giving her anything. And it was like that the whole year.
Foul trouble, technical fouls for punching a stand. They got to get rid of that rule.
Abatrossi did it. The same ref looked the other way, and the player was pointing to the stanchion, and the ref kept walking away. The same ref. It was the same ref. She got 2, and I don't know if anybody else in the league got a technical foul for hitting the stanchion. I didn't hear about any other ones. And, she got one she shouldn't have got because the ref didn't see what developed before that.
Stanchion abuse. That's it. Yeah, that's in the rules, though, which is so.
You really hurt that stanchion's feelings.
I know. I told you should put like a little mark on it, like a little Band-Aid on the thing.
I don't know. We'll see what happens, Rob. We'll see we'll see if it gets any better this year. I don't have a lot of confidence. I just think
No,
the commissioners
me
are confident. Brain dead's a good word for her. You know, dingle, whatever you want, whatever. She's brain dead. You can call her whatever you want. She's just not a good commissioner, and I
Right.
don't think she's going to do anything about it. She's going to do very little about it, and because there needs to be drastic change, and I think they're just going to have small changes.
Right.
So you're looking 5 years away before the refs really get better. That's my guess.
Sure.
Let us know what you guys think down below about the article Rob read and about the WNBA refs. And do you agree with what we're saying? You know, if you like this video, share it with people. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. Hit the notification bell when you do, so you get notified of our next video. And join us for our live show. Well, you can talk about this if you want. It's every Monday, 6 to 8 Eastern time, except for major holidays. And you can call in. And if you want to donate to this channel, you can with super chats and super thanks down below. And there's a link to PayPal. And we'll see you in the next video.
Peace out.